Hey everyone, Tina Hogan Grant here with my Cuppa A Natter that I like to do every other Monday, twice a month. And I like to bring authors into my home and we talk about books, writing, life as an author, anything that comes to mind. And tonight I am joined by Claire Fullerton. How are you, my dear?
I am so happy to be here, Tina. I'm just ready to go. And how are you in Fraser Park?
I'm doing good. We are almost neighbors. I know you're from Malibu. You're about 2 hours away from me, and we have talked, offline about connecting, which I still want to do. Life gets in the way, but my husband and I have told you that we like to go motorcycle riding, and we do go to Malibu. So one of these days, we are going to come to Malibu and come see you, come banging on your door, as long as those German Shepherds.
You won't have to bang on my door because my door will be open for you.
You're so sweet. Your dogs are gorgeous. You have 3 German Shepherds.
Full grown, I might add.
I've seen pictures of them. They are stunning.
Thank you so much. They really are like the center of my gravity because German Shepherds are the kind of dogs that, you couldn't lose them if you had to because they were where I go, they go, including upstairs, downstairs, anywhere. But they're a lot of fun, and we have a nice bit of property here. And so it's fenced in, but it's about 6 acres of usable property, and it's on 20 acres. And again,
nice.
after those fires that we had in November of 2018, and we've been out on the west end of Malibu for about 22 years. So we finally fenced it in after all those years. And it's a good thing because we always know where the shepherds are. I mean, they're always right with us. Right. But they are large on the scene, large in my life. So thank you for mentioning them.
Oh, they're good. And how old are they?
We have 2 that are a little over 8 years old, a male and a female, and a 2-year-old female shepherd. And none of them are really related, with the exception of the 2 females. The older female, her sister had a litter, and we got one of the puppies from that litter. So technically, one of our females is the aunt of the other one.
And I'm sure they are great guard dogs. They'll let you know if anyone's around.
They let us know if a leaf blows on this property. They let us know if somebody's thinking about coming on this property.
Wow. Well, I just love seeing pictures of them. We got a lot of people joining us. I do want to just pause for just 1 second and say hello to a few people. Then we're going to start talking about your books. Good evening, everyone. I am here with Claire Fullerton. She is in California, in Malibu. She's about 2 hours away from me. So I say we are neighbors, right?
That's right.
We are neighbors, but I want to say hi to all you folks. And if you have any questions for Claire, go ahead and put them in the comments and I'll get to as many as I can. But we have Karen Wright joining us, Cinda Unruh, Kim Vicini, Vicky Fassetti. They're all here to see how you are doing and to hear about your books. So Claire, when did you start writing?
All my life. And I
really?
I can definitely say that the incentive of writing novels came from the practice of keeping a journal, which I have done consistently from the time I was around 18 or so.
Okay.
And nobody suggested I ever do this. I just sort of felt the need to, document what was going on. And I think if you keep a journal, and in my case, I would do so in just a spiral notebook, because they're lined and they're convenient to keep. And I think the practice of keeping a journal helps one to get organized with their thoughts. And in time, you do, in fact, learn the art of brevity, the art of being succinct and not just rambling all over. And so it really ended up, unbeknownst to me at the time, being its own teaching method in terms of writing. And I never really aspired to being a writer. Rather, for me, it was more as if I got in touch with the fact that I already was one. And what got me into the idea of novel writing was 2 things. And The first was, and I told you this, Tina, but for those that don't know, I did live on the western coast of Ireland in a rural area known as Connemara. In Connemara, they call it the gateway to the Gaeltacht, and the Gaeltacht is an Irish word for the Irish-speaking cradle of the region, and this was in the very end of the 1990s. And there were quite a few people around me that did speak Irish as a first language. And it was a fascinating year and a half that I spent there. And I worked in the music business because that was my background. And I was representing Irish musicians that were looking for a record deal. Now, the reason I did that was because I'd had a 3-year employment in the Los Angeles record business. And what got me involved in that was I was in radio on the air for 9 years in Memphis, where I came from. So everything has been an exploration of the arts for me. I have a background in ballet.
Wow.
I taught ballet bar and Pilates in Malibu. So it was, for me, it's always just been an exploration and just wanting to be involved in really the arts. Because that's what it is that, inspires me, the idea of creativity in the arts. And I think if one is an artist, they tend to be multifaceted, in it. And although I can't draw.
Me neither. So I'm there with you on all.
I wish I could. I admire those that do. And so it was that. And then when I got back from Ireland, I was offered a job to come back to Los Angeles, which I said at the time I was never, ever, ever going to do. I was never coming back, ever. And fate had other things in store. I ended up marrying the man that offered me that job to come back. So here I am.
There you are.
Here I am. But I think that my first idea to write a novel came from a short story that I wrote about Ireland. And it was published on the Irish Poets website worldwide, and there were people that were writing me through the website and saying, "Oh, there's bound to be a novel here." And I thought, well, there really is. So I went back to the journals I kept in Ireland. And the first novel I wrote ended up being titled "Dancing to an Irish Reel," and that was released in I think 20.
My dad lived in Ireland. I love Ireland.
Where?
Sligo.
He lived in Sligo? William Butler Yeats?
Excuse me?
Yates country, William Butler Yeats.
I was out there. I mean, I want to go again, but my dad is laid to rest there. So I just absolutely love Ireland. So
near Ben Bulben, by any chance?
Excuse me?
Was he laid to rest near Ben Bulben?
He's laid to rest out in Jamaica.
Okay.
About 9 miles out of the town of Sligo.
Yes.
I say miles, but it's probably kilomiles out there.
It's miles to us.
But the Irish folk, I just fell in love with. They are just so friendly. They welcome you. They're just beautiful people. They really are.
And they have all the time in the world.
Oh yeah.
And they don't keep a schedule. And
no, I mean, God bless my dad. When we were at the funeral for my dad, it's a beautiful service and everything like that. But we were all standing around waiting for the vicar, which is the priest over here, the vicar, to do the services. And he was found at the pub.
They had to go get him.
It's like, okay, I'm in Ireland. But that's just one of many stories from Ireland. So I can relate to, the beauty of Ireland. And I'm going to look up this book. What was it called again?
Dancing to an Irish Reel.
I'm going to definitely check that one out. So anyway, back to when was your first book published?
That was my second novel published. I wrote another novel that was published before Dancing to an Irish Reel, although I wrote Dancing to an Irish Reel first. But I wrote a book called A Portal in Time about a woman who realizes she had lived before. And yeah, and I set it in Carmel by the Sea, California. And clearly, all of it from my imagination. based on staying at the La Playa Hotel. My husband and I went to the La Playa Hotel, and I was there and I was in the lobby and I kept saying, I think this hotel is haunted. Well, you come to find out that the La Playa Hotel started as somebody's residence, and it was built in 1907. And it ended up being, do you know Ghirardelli chocolate?
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
So the daughter of whoever, Ghirardelli, they were Italian, that she married a Norwegian painter, and he built her that house that decades later became the La Playa Hotel in Carmel. They built onto it. So it's an historic hotel, but the lobby itself and the staircase was part of the original house. It's a gorgeous hotel, historic and on wonderful grounds. And so that's where I got the idea for A Portal in Time. And so Dancing to an Irish, and that was in 2013 that it was published. And
so you've been writing for a while. How many books have you published?
4 novels, 1 novella that appears in the book A Southern Season, which is a collection of 4 novellas, and they're all Southern set stories. And so that's in there. And I've just completed my 5th manuscript, which is in the beginning stages of, being under review and this kind of thing. So I'll let you know what happens with that 5th manuscript. So that happened really about 2 weeks ago.
Well, congratulations. Isn't that a great feeling when you actually complete the book?
Well, I hope it's complete. I mean, I hope the feedback on it is good.
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. Now, your latest book was called Little T.
It was.
That's your latest one. And when did that one come out?
During the pandemic in May of 2020. So it was right
during
hard
to release a book during COVID. That was
hard. I've got so lucky with having great friends, authors, and readers. The Pulpwood Queens book club, instrumental. I mean, a lot of people came to the rescue, of that, because my plans were to go to Memphis, where I grew up, and Jackson, Mississippi, and Johnny Webb and a book club is down there and all these things. And so I had it all mapped out. There were 9 stops, and all of it, of course, was canceled, but it ended up being just fine for me with Little T. And it might have been because Morning Dove was released 18 months before Little T was released. And so they kind of held the hands of each other. And so I count myself, lucky and blessed that the way that dynamic presented itself, that I didn't feel compromised.
That's good. Do you have any of your books close by to hold up?
I do. Yeah. You want to see? It's funny you should ask. Am I coming prepared? Thank you. This is Morning Dove.
Beautiful cover. Now, did you design the covers or have input on these covers?
I had input on the covers, but I couldn't be more pleased with this because I wanted it to look like a painting.
It's stunning. It
and
really
not having people in it. Yeah. And so Morning Dove is set in 1970s and then into 1980s Memphis. And it concerns 2 siblings that moved to the Deep South from the North when they were at a young, impressionable age, and about how together they learned to fit into the nuances of the Deep South. And I say that with Morning Dove, it's that side of the South where all that glitters isn't necessarily gold. And so it's a family saga set in the genteel side of Memphis. So we're not talking about the South with the coon dogs and the pickup trucks and the dirt roads. That wasn't the South I wrote about. I wrote about the antiquated social mores that are almost like, Victorian England in terms of a small, tightly knit milieu that had been firmly intact for generations. And you do find that in the Deep South. And that was the South that I wanted to write about. And so the siblings are outsiders, and who better to tell the reader what it's really, really like, because they're outsiders.
Right.
So again, it's a Southern family saga. And, the next one that came after that was Little T. And this again, the cover looks like a painting.
It
Uh,
does.
and it has the dimension and the etches and all that. For this cover, I came up with the vision that I wanted it to be a house that looked, a deeply entrenched character. And I did the same thing in Morning Dove, and I never really thought this through, but I'm huge on where people come from and really the house that they grow up in, and if the walls could talk, and just how familiar we all are with our own homes that we grow up in. Even if we're in our 50s, we there's always that house that we call home when we think of
Oh
home.
yeah. I mean,
It's
I've been in
typically
the
red.
States since 79 or 80, but
Yeah,
I always consider Ilkley, where I grew up, as my hometown.
yeah,
And where I'm living now is Fraser Park. It's also my home, but my roots will
right.
always be in Ilkley. And when I went back to England, one of the first places I had to go see was the house I grew up in.
I bet. Now,
I
where
did.
is Milkley?
Ilkley is it's in the Yorkshire. Have you been to
Okay,
England?
I have.
Okay, so have you been up north to Ilkley? It's about 250 miles north of London.
Everything is somewhere from London, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
London is the core, and you just kind of get your directions from London. If you're either
right,
south of London, west of London, north of London. But
right.
yes, about 200 miles, 50 miles north of London. How far? What part of Yorkshire did you go to? Do you
I
remember?
didn't go to Yorkshire. I've just been London in
Okay.
England, and I should have done more. I really want to go to Bath
Bath.
and
Well, there's so
Cornwall.
much history. One thing I miss about England is the history. I
Right.
really miss, because I love reading historical fiction, and I just love history. And it's an old country, so you're going to get all this history. America is such a new country, still is considered a new country.
Yes.
But in England, I mean, Ilkley was built around a Roman wall, from 600 AD. And the wall is still there. Not all of it. I mean, the ruins of the wall. And it's just the castles, the manors. There's just so much history that you
Have you
can't.
been to Cornwall?
I have been to Cornwall, Land's End, Dover. Yes, I have.
That's where I want to see.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's parts of England I haven't seen that I do want to go to. Whitby was one of my favorite places. It's a small fishing village in the Midlands, but it's just a quaint little fishing town that I just adored. Just adored.
So have you seen Stonehenge?
No, I've not made it to Stonehenge.
I want to
That's
see
on my
that
list.
too.
Yes. Uh-huh. But what took you to England? You just traveled there on vacation?
I've been there twice, actually, London both times, and friends that live there. And then I've been to Ireland collectively 5 times, and that one time I stayed a year and a half. And so yeah, it always had something to do with traveling to Ireland.
Have you been to Scotland?
That is where I'm going next. In fact,
Oh, weird.
I had, because my family is Scotch Irish,
Okay.
and nothing but on both sides. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
not even French, I'm not even, I mean, I'm not even a mutt, it's like Scotch Irish. I know. I mean, is that boring? I don't know. But my friend that I grew up with in Memphis and I had it all planned. And then the pandemic came. And so we're going to do it soon enough because I want to go to, the Scottish Highlands. Craigivear Castle is my forebears. They built it. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I've never seen it. And that's
Oh,
what
you have to go.
Walt Disney patterned, his logo
Hmm.
on Craigivear. And so I have it all firmly organized on how to do this in terms of Edinburgh for maybe 2 days or so, and then go straight to the
Oh, you have
Highlands
to
and
go.
and,
You have
and
to
go
go.
all the way to Aberdeen and maybe the Isle of Skye.
I've been to Isle of Skye.
Right. See, that's what I wanted. I
Mhm.
just adore the climate, and I love nature. and
Yeah,
all of
me
that.
too. I
So
love the outdoor, and I love rain. And here I am in
I do,
California.
I do too.
It's like,
And
you know,
when it rains here, California shuts down.
I know they have no clue how to drive or do anything when it's like a panic mode. It's like it's just water. Good Lord, I'm going to pause for just a little bit and say hi to a few more people. We have a lot of people joining us. I want to welcome you. I'm talking to Claire Fullerton. She's in beautiful Malibu, California. Denise Burt is here.
Oh my God,
I
Denise, I
see a
love her.
couple. Yeah, you know Denise. I see a few of you as Facebook user. That means you're watching from my private group. If you go to the top of the video, there's a blue link that says click on this to give not Facebook, StreamYard permission to see your name. If you're on my author page, I don't need permission because it's a public page. So you can either click on the blue link, or if you jump over to my author page and watch from there, I'll be able to see your name. That's a StreamYard thing. It's out of my control. Barbara Miller is here. Teresa Moyer is here. Sherry Evans Barone is here. If you have any questions for Claire, go ahead and put them in the comments. I will try and get to some. I'm going to put this one up, but I'm afraid I don't have a name. If you could meet or team up with any authors you admire to write a book with, who would it be and why?
Oh, Pat Conroy, I
Oh,
think.
yes.
He just fascinates me as a writer. And I can definitely tell y'all, when I read the Prince of Tides, and it must have been in the 1980s, it maybe the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, but I remember just my world being blown open because he was talking about his family. And, in the deep South, when you're raised that way, or my generation at least, it's, you didn't go there. You did not divulge. You did not air your dirty laundry. You did not discuss. And the fact that he wrote The Prince of Tides and said what he said rather existentially, and it is an existential book throughout it. And by that, I mean, he gave himself permission, Pat Conroy, as a writer, to tell the reader how he views the world, how he views situations. And I think that, for me as a reader, that's what I want to glean from the time spent and, of reading a novel, the investment in it. For me, it must be an emotional investment. And so the writer, the really good ones, are the ones that strike that chord or that common thread that speaks to everybody. They can relate to it and they can say, oh my God, you too? Because I thought it was only me. And I think that's the true gift of authors. And on the one hand, authors are telling a story, and it needs to be a compelling story. Of course it does. Not everybody is the same way. Readers are different. I'm glad that's what makes the world spin around. But for me, when I read and I can relate to something and the author is positing something in a way, and there's that sense of familiarity.
You want that connection when you read the book.
Yeah, you do. And you want to say, you have put into words what I've been trying to put into words. You have just identified how I feel, and I didn't realize that I felt that way until you presented this through the story. And so it's typically an existential moment. And that's why I just adore Pat Conroy, because he did it in every single novel he ever wrote. And I had the pleasure of meeting him in person.
Oh, you met him?
Yeah. The year before he died, I flew to Beaufort, South Carolina, because they were celebrating his 70th birthday. And I flew from California, and I thought I was going to meet him and shake his hand, maybe. And I was wrong. He invited me to his house. And
Wow.
He couldn't have been nicer, more open, more accessible, and funny, self-deprecating, and just lovely. And at that 70th birthday, it was in part a literary festival, but there weren't but about 200 people there, if that. So it was a very intimate setting. And then of course he died within the year. And they started the Pat Conroy Literary Festival in honor of him. And I flew back there.
Have you been to the center?
Well, at the center was a vision and an idea at that time, because it was just a year later. But they have the loveliest people.
I had Jonathan on here one time.
Yeah, and what a wonderful job he's doing. Just keeping the vision and the legacy, and all the reasons why readers, want to be connected and involved. They have really miraculously created a mecca, in there, and it's a lovely town. So yeah, I have a lot of really positive things to say about everybody in Beaufort, South Carolina, about the location, the town itself, and about Pat Conroy, because I could tell you, Tina, 10 authors off the top of my head right now that were influenced and inspired by Pat Conroy. He gave everybody permission, I think, to write in a very, he wrote in the first person, which is immediate accessibility. When readers do that, write in the first person. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer to your question.
No, that's a brilliant answer, and that's on my bucket list, is to go out to that festival one year.
Right.
After talking to Jonathan and talking about Pat Conroy,
I'll come with
chat. It's just
I'll meet you at LAX and we'll go.
Yeah, and there's a couple of authors out there that I want to meet. Top of my head, I can't remember who. Stephanie Edwards. There's another one, Katie, but she goes by a different name. So there's quite a few authors in South Carolina that I've also have ties to the center.
Yes,
that'd be just great to just fly out there and meet up with all of you and have lunch and talk about Pat Conroy.
That's right. I mean,
let's do it.
You tell me when we're leaving, and I'll meet you at LAX.
There we go. We're going to do it. I would love to do it. I would. I do want to take a minute and let's hold up the cover one more time for Little T. That was your latest novel. Again, that came out, and I'm sorry, forgive me, 2018?
Well, it was 2020, and it was May. And I wrote this book because I wanted to talk about women. I wanted to capture how women really talk when they're amongst each other and there's no men around, and one of them has a problem and the other two are trying to solve it. And I like the idea of, here's the good news about women friends, especially the kind that you meet when you're young, like in high school, 12, 13, or, further into high school. And now everybody's later on in years. So you've got each other's histories. Right. So I like the idea of having, okay, there's a problem here with one of these friends, and the other two are going to try to solve it. And the friend who's got the problem is in denial, resistant. She's drinking too much. She's on the fence. Should she leave her marriage? She's not satisfied. She's not fulfilled. She's not happy. Well, she got married when she was in her early 20s. They've been together forever. And so, and I think that that's common. And so I wanted to take a female dilemma and have women comment on it. So it's three different vantage points on one issue. There are three different personalities. They have three different frames of references in terms of what their background is in life, but they all care and they're given their opinion. And you know how women kind of talk over each other. And when you've got each other's history, you've got a sense of humor. And and especially with Southern women, this is set in the Deep South, that they will go to humor and sarcasm before they'll really reveal
their true self.
Yeah, Southern women just don't break down in front of people and lose it. We are not, all is lost, oh woe is me. Southern women don't do that. They'll go to sarcasm first, and they'll go to that sort of secret insider's history where the friends have each other's stories, and there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. I've got your number. I'll write about that And I had a blast writing the dialogue. And it was almost effortless for me because, full disclosure, I have friends that I grew up with. How I got the idea for this whole thing was visiting Memphis. Now, I've been in California for close to 30 years. And just while we were together and talking, I was very aware of the beauty and the magic and just the sage-like wisdom of the banter that was going on between us. It was almost as if I had the ability to sit outside of the conversation as it was going on and just observe and say, these women I'm with are unbelievable in terms of just how wise they are and just how effervescent and fully alive and fully present. And so it was that I wanted to capture, and hopefully, women that read it say, "Oh, I've got a friend who's just like that."
They can relate to at least one of those
Yeah.
characters.
So that was.
I gotta ask: is any of these women based on someone you know?
No, not really. It's
No?
more of a composite, and I think that I found my way through the story of Little T. Now, Little T is a nickname. Her real name is Thelonious Winfrey, and she's Black, and the narrator is white, and they're the same age, and they grew up together, footloose and fancy free, in Como, Mississippi, which is 45 miles south of Memphis, where I grew up. And so that's why I said it there. It's an agrarian region. They grow cotton and soybean and whatever, but there are also some of those pre-Civil War homes that are down there, very large and columned and on a lot of land and maybe passed down in generations. And, I love the setting and the heat and the humidity and the bugs and the everything of, the Mississippi Delta.
You ever go back?
So that's where I go back often enough. I mean, I've got ties there. Yeah, I've got ties there still, but yeah. It was that, and then the three women friends that I mentioned in Little T, they meet at one of the friends' lake house to spend a long weekend to discuss this business with Ava, because she's losing her mind. She's drinking too much and she wants to leave Stan. So the narrator who's telling the story, as it unfolds, we get her backstory, and it involves growing up with her best friend, Little T, and what became of that friendship. And keep in mind, I'm not going to give it away, is set in the Deep South in the 1980s. There were ramifications of a biracial close friendship, and so it was the Little T is all about women, no matter how you look at it, and the way they relate to each other, and the anchoring presence that they provide for each other that can last a lifetime. So that's what the story of Little T is about.
And I'm going to ask, what inspired this? Was it something that, with friends that you were with that inspired this story?
Yeah, it was, the beginning was wanting to capture female friendships, and starting with the three characters. And I write in the first person because I prefer it. And I prefer to read in the first person, to each their own. Right. I like the first person because of its intimacy and its immediacy. And I like to know who I'm listening to. Who are you?
That makes sense.
Who's telling the story? And so that is my preference. And I knew that I wanted to really talk about the female friendships, and I gave them a dilemma to solve. And the backstory of Little T, I created it without having any forethought of doing it. But I said to myself about 25 pages in, all right, the narrator has said she's returning to the Deep South to visit with her friends. She's returning from where? Why isn't she in the Deep South anymore? The reader wants to know. I'm saying 25 pages in, and I said, okay, well, the narrator grew up in Como, Mississippi, on vast 240 acres of cotton and soybean, and there was a caretaker's cottage. And I'm saying, who lives in the caretaker's cottage? And I said, well, his name is Thelonious, and he's the groundskeeper, and he's Black, and And he's married. Yeah, he's married. Do they have any children? They've got one, and they named her Thellonia, and everybody calls her Little T. She's the same age as the narrator, and away I went with the story. And so the story of Little T, I had the wonderful experience of creating something completely organically, authentically, that I was just as surprised as the reader's going to be by the ending of Little T. I mean, people.
So you didn't know the ending. You didn't know the ending.
People were like, "Did you plan that ending?" And I, no.
So you don't plot your stories. You just sit down and start writing.
I start with an intention. What is it?
Okay, that never works for me.
The intention. What is it I want to talk about? With Mourning Dove, it was the sins of the father, the power of family, the ramifications, repercussions, and how they define us for the rest of our lives, who we come from, the family we're in, the drama, the trauma, the lack thereof defines us for the rest of our lives. That was what led me through Mourning Dove.
Mourning Dove. I do want to go back to Little T. There's a couple of comments and questions I want to put up. This one is from Cheryl. I just want to put some of these up. I went through that in the 1970s in the segregation period as I made friends with Black girls and had the anger of some family members because of it. So I just want to put up some of these comments that people are saying from what you were talking about the book.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
And that's not that long ago. I mean, the 70s,
it really wasn't.
It was not that long ago.
In the 80s, I think that it was equally, in terms of the social mores. Yeah, there was still some of that. It was regional, and I wasn't setting out to make any comment one way or the other. I set out to tell a story, and I think that writers, make a choice. I'm never going to do anything but say to the reader, here's the story. What's your take on it? Because readers are intelligent people. Mm-hmm. And so I'm never going to interfere in their spiritual or intellectual space ever. I'm just going to tell the story.
And then let them. Yeah.
Yes. So they can relate and reflect. And, I think that's why I do it. I mean, it's why I write. I'm comparing notes as if the reader and I are in complete accord. And I'm saying intimately and honestly, what's your take on this? What do you think? I mean, I like those kinds of stories where I give the reader something to consider.
What I like too is you'll have your story, you write your story, it's the story, but everyone that reads it is going to relate to it in a different way. There's going to be a part of that book that they can relate to that the person over there finds something else to relate to.
That is the hope.
Yeah. It's not all going to be the same connection. There might be something from a town. It might be a character. It might be a dog. It might be something someone said. So everyone relates to a book differently.
You are so right.
Yeah, so right. Denise had a good question. I want to put this up for you. What did you find to be most satisfying in writing Little T?
The most satisfying for me was the way the dialogue. Thank you, Denise, so much for that. Thank you. She knows authors well, Denise. What can you say?
She does, and she does a lot for authors. I really appreciate.
She always says the right thing, and in this case, always. I think that the dialogue, I had so much fun writing it, and I did not for 1 minute have any difficulty with it, because I know my friends and to a degree myself, I surprise myself sometimes, well enough to know exactly what that dynamic would be in terms of any kind of a conversation on any subject. I'm pretty clear on who would say what, in terms of personalities. And I think as a writer, once you decide the personalities based on the background, what contributed to that personality, once you decide on that, then the dialogue, the speech becomes effortless. And so for me, definitely, Denise, It was all about writing that dialogue and keeping it the way that friends really talk. You kind of interrupt each other.
Mm-hmm.
You're sometimes incensed. You're telling me, oh, I didn't mean it that way. I mean, why are you taking me so seriously? I'm like, come on now, back up. And then I know, but you said, but I know, but that's not what I meant, so you're listening to what, unbelievable. The way that women speak to each other when they really get going.
But you nailed it when you said that, women tend to talk over each other.
Always.
Always.
We've all got something to say. It's much more important than what you're saying.
Exactly.
I'm infinitely smarter than you are,
You nailed it. I love that. What genre do you normally write in? Are your books all the same genre, or do you jump from genre to genre?
But they're all the same genre because they're all written by me. And so I would say that upmarket fiction. Now, what that means is the bridge between commercial and literary fiction. So yeah, upmarket fiction, and literary fiction tends to focus on the use of language, the lyrical tone, the descriptive, whatever. And commercial fiction is a little bit tighter, and the intent is the story. Does the story pop, 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 pop all the way through? And it should. And so if you take those two together, that you have a tight story that moves very, very swiftly enough to keep the reader engaged, and you're using language in a way that is considered literary. Genres and parameters, they're there for a reason. And, people that like to read thrillers, and people that like to read mysteries, and people that like to read just the literary. I read a lot of the Irish writers, and they're brilliant. I mean, there's quite a community in Ireland, and the majority of them that I've read are writing literary fiction. It's all about the language, and so yeah, that's what it is. Because I set my last two in the Deep South, and if you look on, online at the booksellers, they'll say the categories, and they'll be under Southern fiction,
right,
women's fiction, literary fiction. It. I understand why they have to do that, because they're trying to do the reader a favor and say,
yeah,
this is the category. But the categories, I think that they can have very loose parameters.
right. And all of your books, they are standalones, correct?
They are. Yes.
Do you think any of them will turn into a series, or do you have any plans on writing a series, or you just like writing a standalone?
I do not. I think that no, I do not. I like the idea of standalones. I like to give the reader an all encompassing experience. And here's the story, and this is what happened. Right. But so I don't take the same characters and carry forth and continue the story, because my stories have an ending.
So, okay. So there's no cliffhanger, no to be continued.
No. If there's cliffhangers, the idea of what's going to compel the reader to move forward, you'll find them at the end of chapters.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put this up because we are talking about genres. She wanted to know, would you ever step out of your comfort zone with another genre?
You are psychic. Thank you. Yes, I did it with this manuscript that is now being reviewed, and it's different than anything I've written before, and it's more of a mystery, kind of a puzzle. That's all I'm going to say.
Ooh.
But it's still, the language that I write in, kind of a thing. But yeah, I did explore out of my comfort zone, and I just kept going until I finished.
You liked it. You finished the book, so you sound like you did okay.
It was almost. I was trying to think. The title is The Insiders, I'm not going to tell you all what it's about because I got to get that book home first. And then you're going to hear me talking about it, when that happy day comes, may it please God, But yeah, I think that in terms of that, it was about a 2.5 year, maybe even 3 years writing this novel, many, many revisions, and really having to tighten it up and make the story very fluid because it's kind of like the unraveling of a puzzle.
Sounds intriguing.
So it ends where it began.
I like that. Did a
Right.
360.
Well, wish me luck. Wish me luck on on the road that's before me. And again, I just got on it. Like
I wish you luck. Lots of
Thank
luck.
you.
I do.
Thank you.
I do. I am going through some of the questions. I'm popping up here. Cheryl's asking, you are new to me, Claire. So what book would you recommend I start with?
Oh, read Little T. Because it was the last one. And, Morning Dove or Little T, I think that if you like a Southern family saga in terms of, set in the genteel side of 1970s and 1980s Memphis, that is Morning Dove. And it's Mourn, like the bird. And so that might kind of tip you off. And then Little T is about the, female friendships and in terms of women trying to make sense of their life. They keep coming back to the idea, or the question rather, what is happiness? These women are saying, no, seriously, what is happiness supposed to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And then in Little T, the narrative says what it is to me could be totally meaningless to you.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, I got to explore, female, women's concerns. Again, women are deep. Women are deep. And when they give each other advice, it's, like the heavens move, And so that's what's in Little T. And I say read them both. There's your answer. Read them both.
Read them both. There you go. Good answer. Good
different.
answer. And then when I wanted to put this one up because you had mentioned on one book that you didn't know the ending. Do you know in the beginning how your books are going to end, or is it spontaneous? Now, we talked about one book. I think it was Little T or maybe Morning Dove. But all your books, are they spontaneous endings? You don't know?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have no idea.
They are. I think with Dancing to an Irish Reel, I had the whole story in hand, the beginning and the middle and the end. And I think most writers will tell you this, even if they, if they don't have an outline going into it, they end up creating one once they're well into the story.
Mm-hmm.
I am no exception of that I will feel my way into it. And once I have a handle on the story, I will then map it out where it's going.
Okay. I do not plot my stories. And I find as I'm writing them that I love getting to know the characters because when I first start writing, I have no idea what the hobbies are, what the flaws are, nothing. And as the story develops, some of it's quite a surprise. And I love that part about writing. Do you have a favorite part about writing when it comes to actually writing the story?
That was so great that you said that. That's just because Tina, what that tells me is that you're the kind of writer that's going to be giving the reader an experience that you're just as surprised as they're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love the idea of that. I love the idea of that.
Yeah, for me, if I mean, this is what works for me. If I try to plot out my books and give, character A these flaws, these personalities, to me they feel like cardboard because I am forcing those emotions, those feelings onto them. Whereas if I just let them tell me, look,
Yeah.
I like black coffee, I like, I'm
right.
exactly
Right.
To me, it just feels more real. So for me to try and plot a book just doesn't work because my characters to me seem cardboard because I have forced their personality on them.
I completely
Yeah,
understand.
you get that? That works.
Of
That's
course
probably,
I
yeah.
do.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
by the
that's
end of,
one.
because I write series. I do write series. I
Mhm.
tried to write a standalone, so I admire you for writing a standalone. I cannot do it. I just can't do it. I've tried. But as my series develop, I find out more about the characters. And when the series ends, like my trilogy ended, it was kind of sad because it's like, oh, I'm gonna miss those guys.
Now what am I gonna do?
Yeah, so I do like writing the series because it gives me more in depth of my characters. But when the series comes to an end, it's going to be, oh, I'm going to miss Jill. I'm going to miss so and so. So but I'll create new ones.
You can always go back and revisit by reading them again.
There we go. And I say that to myself. The Tammy Mellors trilogy I wrote. I should read Reckless Beginnings again because I haven't read it in like 3 or 4 years,
Well, you should.
and I should go back and read it again.
Definitely.
It's been a while. I'm looking at the time. It's going by so quick, but I want to try and get in some more questions. I have some more questions for you too. Here's one from Shell again. I'm going to let you answer it for both of you, but I'm going to let you answer. What do you do to relax when you're not writing?
2 things. I live close enough to the entirety of the California coastline. I mean, I'm looking at it outside my window. My screen is being lit by it, and so I spend a lot of time outside, walking the beach, and there are trails, trails, and then you can walk down an area and literally, land on the sand. I do that very often. The other thing I do is I taught a version of ballet bar and Pilates mat. I'm certified. I have my piece of paper, but how I came into that was that I always kept up with ballet just because I love it, and I have a natural aptitude for it. Although I was never in a company and I did not pursue it as a career. What I have is a sense of that my body's fluidity and movement in space and all of that. And so I keep on top of that because, use it or lose it in terms of,
Sure.
primarily just for mobility, you know,
Mhm.
moving through space and that kind of a thing. That yeah, it gives me a sense of, my attunement, my body in space and all of that. And you find that, and I have friends that are professional dancers that, they were a couple of them with the New York City Ballet. And
Wow.
yeah, and good friends of mine. I mean, and they were like the Sugar Plum Fairy in the in the New York. I was never on that level. What I did was keep up with it, and then I taught it for 8 years in Malibu. And so, I do those kinds of things. I'm one of those. The mind and the body and the spirit is one.
Okay. I can
I
see
mean,
that.
I
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
that's just been my experience, and so for relaxation, I don't know that it really relaxes me too much, but it does give me, a sense of presence, if you will, and then of course there's reading. I'm a voracious reader. I read always, always, always. I always have a book going, sometimes two.
What are you reading right now?
I am reading. I'm going to review this. I review for the New York Journal of Books in my spare
Okay.
time. And this is Christopher Swan.
Never
Never
go
Go
home.
Home. Now, this is, oh my God, this guy, y'all. I don't even know where to
Is it
begin.
a thriller?
Yeah, and then some. He wrote Never Turn Back. And then he wrote another one, Fire in the Night. I'm looking at it over here on my bookshelf. And this is the third one. It seems to me that there's one of his I haven't read, but he is a teacher in Atlanta, a really nice guy, Christopher Swan. And this is the advanced review copy. and the book will be out in August. And I'm
Oh.
reading it to review it for the New York Journal of Books.
Well, thanks for sharing that one.
Well, I'm a fan of this guy's, and so when I heard, that I have another book coming out in August, I just said, "Honey,
Give me one. Give me one.
give it to me." So I'm a fan of his and recommend his work. And so, I read Adriana Trigiani's book and reviewed it. It's up on my Facebook page, y'all. I put my reviews up there on my Facebook page and under Claire Fullerton. But I'm the biggest champion of authors that I know the work and I admire so many of them. But yeah, Adriana Trigiani's book, The Good Left Undone, that was released April 26th. I reviewed it. Reviews on my Facebook page. It's set in Italy. Oh my God, y'all read that book. I mean, it is so good. She says she was surprised that it ended up being historical fiction. It is a story of 3 generations of an Italian family. It's set in Viareggio, Italy, and it's unbelievable. And so there's a reason she's an international
bestseller.
Adriana.
Which, I mean to interrupt you, but we women do talk over each other. But I just want to point out too that you have won many awards. I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Well, how sweet of you. Thank you. Yeah. Morning Dove won 13.
Wow.
And so
I am saying a few.
Yeah, I was
congratulations.
Yeah, and little T with the pandemic, I think the total is 7, but it's just little T. God love the whole situation. I'm still letting readers know that it exists because I'm like plenty of my fellows and peers that the pandemic did kind of put a little bit of a
damper.
Yeah.
It was tough.
So
but I do want to head out to Malibu and see you in person because I have so much more to say to you.
My door is open, and the dogs will behave.
My favorite restaurant in Malibu is Malibu Seafood. They have the best fish and chips. I'm from England, but we used to sell our seafood to them too. The lobsters. We would
sell your seafood. You said.
Yeah, because my husband and I were commercial fishermen, and we would fish off of Malibu when we came back from San Clemente. And Mark, I think, still owns Malibu Seafood. I think he's still the owner.
With the blonde hair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we sold to him back in the 90s. And during one of the Malibu fires, we got stuck there because we were delivering oysters, lobsters, and the fire just came from nowhere over the hill behind Malibu Seafood. And we got stuck there.
So what did you do?
Well, my hair caught on fire from a flying ember. Which was pretty scary. And we had my other Jack Purcell at the time, and our truck was parked underneath a palm tree that caught in fire. And we were so busy drenching the building with water as much as we could to save Malibu Seafood. But we ended up evacuating down to the Michael Landon Center.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we were there for like 10 minutes, and then they evacuated the center. So it's like, okay, so we just kept driving on Pacific Coast Highway towards Santa Monica, but we had flames on both sides of our truck.
What year was this?
This was 90, 98, 96, 97, somewhere around there. There's 2 Malibu fires.
Yeah.
And that was the first one. And then the second one, we were actually out the Malibu coastline and was watching the fire. And we could actually see the flying embers land on the roof of a house, and within minutes, that house was in flames.
It's terrible.
It was insane. Yeah. It was just crazy. And you were there for those fires?
Well, the one in November of 2018, we did have to evacuate.
Okay, that's the recent one.
The thing was, they wouldn't let us back in. That once we left, and we went to Santa Barbara, and that was just a stroke of like, divine intervention, blind luck, that we had a friend living in Santa Barbara that found out that we had to leave the house to evacuate. And he said, I'm going to Thailand for a month. come get the keys to my place in Santa Barbara. And we had 2 German Shepherds and a cat at the time.
Wow.
And it was just like,
How close did the fire come to you?
It stopped in our front yard. And so it took out all of the state park that's near us. So hundreds of acres of, timber, basically.
Yeah.
And it got to our front yard and it stopped. It didn't get the house, but it took out, I think the total was 26 of our trees.
Jeez.
Took them out.
I'm glad you were okay and your home was okay and your pets are okay.
Well, we had to, put them in the car and leave. And the thing about it is that those fires raged on for days and days and days. And Malibu was supposed to be evacuated. Well, you had some diehard residents that said, absolutely not. Well, I'd vacate my house. And they got, they were the ones with, hoses on their roof, in emergency alert, for days. But you weren't supposed to do that. Some did it anyway. And but once we were evacuated, they wouldn't let us back in. That we drove down from Santa Barbara, which is an hour drive to Malibu, exactly an hour. And we tried to get in and they wouldn't let us in. They had, police cars and uniform and all that at the various, the obvious entrance to get into Malibu. And no, you're not coming in.
And you had no idea if your house still standing when they wouldn't let you in.
We didn't know for days. And somebody had taken the telephoto lens that you can put on your camera, that long distance. Somebody had gotten up at a rise on the Pacific Coast Highway and taken a long range view of Malibu burning. And I saw the photograph online, and I was on my laptop where you can blow it up, enlarge the image. And there was our house. And I said to my husband, okay, I'm looking at our house. So
whoa,
it didn't burn the ground. But I can't tell you the friends that I have lost everything.
Wow. It's sad.
Yeah, it's frightening, but it doesn't happen that often. I mean, in plenty.
No, it's not. The ones that I experienced was in the 90s. And then since then, there was the next one was 2018. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, friends of mine that live in, the Gulf Coast and even the low country, South Carolina, Florida, whatever, they have to deal with the hurricanes and the floods.
Every state has something. We're in a fire zone up here. We've had fires up here that didn't come as close to my backyard like you, but we're in the national forest, and that's one of the things that.
Where's the nearest body of water for you, Tina?
Nearest Pyramid Lake, about 5 miles from here. We used to have a pond right here in town that the fire department would use. It dried up. So now it's Pyramid Lake. And I guess Pine Mountain Club has a small little pond, but not a lot of water. But Pyramid Lake they can use, and Quail Lake off of the 138. But do you remember? I've forgotten the name of the fire. This was back in 2000, but it lasted 30 days, and we had like 2,000 firefighters up here all day. They were camped in the park, and they did a brilliant job. Of course, we're still here, but it was a huge fire, just a huge fire, and the smoke. What's the name of the fire? The day fire. Do you remember that?
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it started at Pyramid Lake. It started at Pyramid Lake and made its way into Fraser Park. Well, not into, but the boundaries of Fraser Park. So.
Well, why don't y'all fill up that lake that dried up?
Oh, it's a little pond.
It's a pond, but why can't
I can get into that, but it's the water company that kind of cut into the natural spring and dried up our pond. That's what we, that's what we say here in town.
Okay, well, all right. Then I believe you.
Yeah. But, I could talk to you for another hour. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. I've had a great time. Finally, we get to kind of meet face to face.
I know, but when next time we meet, it's going to be in person, fish and chips, Malibu seafood, your house. I want to see your dog.
You just tell me when you're coming and I'll be ready.
You got it. But I do want to mention the giveaways. You've been very generous.
Yes, I'm giving away.
Yes.
I'm giving away.
I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about the giveaways.
Okay.
So go for
All
it.
right. So let me grab the books again.
Yes.
So this is, am I on screen?
You're
This
on.
is Morning Dove. Is this upside down? And little,
That's okay.
hello.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm going to author sign copy, one of each. And so Tina, what is your recommendation on the best way to have people enter the giveaway?
Well, the giveaway is for the people that are watching us live.
Yes.
They've taken out their hour, to be with us and be interested in our books and share with us their time. And normally, because I'm seeing a few Facebook users, their name is not going to show up until the live stops, and then their name will appear. The names are going to be on my author page, live video, and in my group. So there's 2 places that you need to check to pick a winner. You can either pick the winners, or I can pick the winners for you. That's entirely.
You do it because
Okay.
I'm going to remain.
And I always
Everybody's
wait
best friend.
until after the live because of the Facebook users. I can't see their name. But once we stop going live, poof, I can see their name.
Okay.
So I'll do that, and I will tag you. I usually do it around 8 o'clock out. I'm going to say my time, but it's our time because we're in the same time. I'm not used to saying
so
that.
rare. Nobody lives out here except for us.
I know, right? So I'll announce it about 8 o'clock my time, and I'll tag you. So we've got 2 paperbacks, one of each. And then I'm also going to give away a $5 Amazon gift card. And to be entered in that one, you need to go to my author page and share this video with your friends, your book clubs, whoever you want to share it to, and tag me. So that way I know you shared it, and you will be entered in the drawing for a $5 Amazon gift card. There we go.
There we go.
This has been wonderful. I want to just hand it over to you again, just the last few words, and then we'll call it a night.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Tina. Your reputation precedes you.
Oh.
And you're just as lovely as I knew you would be, and as everybody says. So thank you so much for being so gracious. And for all the readers that are out there, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to come and visit and learn a little bit about my writing. And y'all follow me on Instagram. My dogs are more popular on Instagram than I am. They need their own page at this point. But yeah, I like to show, the waves in Malibu and my shepherds and nature and my books. And again, I do review books, and I'll do the book cover if I have a book recommendation. I really like to support my fellow authors and just keep the reader engagement as well. And so I tend to spend a lot of my time on Instagram, more so than Facebook, and unless there's something sort of happening, whatever. And I do have a website under my name, which is Claire Fullerton. You can see the spelling online. And that's about it. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you so much, Claire. This has been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. And me and hubby are going to come out and see you in Malibu.
I'm going to be waiting for you.
All right. Okay, babe.
Okay.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Oh, wait. Here's hubby right now. He's going to say hi real quick before we end the podcast. Here he is.
You lucky man married to this beautiful woman. It's nice to meet you.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I hope to meet you in person because I live not far from Neptune's net.
Oh, yeah. We'll drive up there.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. Until that happy day.
All right, guys. We're going to call it a night. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will talk to you soon.
Bye,
Thank you, Claire. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.